I hope you could connect to what I was trying to sort of lead us through as a series of steps and ways of relating that I found to just actually resolve, what seemed like a conundrum before, sort of paradox, that sense of the ultimate versus the sense of the relative. Um, but I'd be very curious to hear how you guys found this meditation, and also uh, if you if you relate to these terms as part of your practice and where you guys are at in terms of the sense of the relative and the ultimate. Yeah, yeah. I really like your first question about you just I'd be curious to hear from other people here as well. Is when we incite that word, the ultimate or absolute. And I was deliberately trying to use kind of vague language, maybe some pointers. I was like, yeah, go big, or I said container at some point, but trying to keep it a bit open ended. So like, are people gonna be tuning into the same thing, or how would you give those descriptions? So, um, yeah, like you were suggesting, like, oh, a kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, like a voidness. You're, yeah. Yeah, in some ways, like I put a lot of stock and value in the bouncingness, right? It's like going particular, multiplicity, then going big, and then going back to multiplicity, and then going big, and like stretching the flexibility of your attention in that way. Um, so, in some sense, you were saying you related to what was connecting to with the sense of the ultimate, but then you added other stuff. But yeah, like I think we're describing. So, um, they people aren't all necessarily meaning the same thing when they talk about the ultimate. Like maybe, yeah, you guys can find some overlap, but there can be um, embellishments that are different, or you might have like actually very different conceptions. Someone might be like, no, totally the fullness thing, or other person might be totally the emptiness thing, or a God thing, or like it, and then you like, well, God actually has, there's a sense of a knower to an omniscient, omnipresent being. Other person might be like, no, there's no like kind of personal being there. I mean, it's just a sense of spaciousness, or you might go, oh, it's before space and time. And so that is suggestive that um, you have these qualities, and then you can add a uh, um, label to the qualities, be it many qualities or few qualities, add the label of that's the ultimate. And then what we find is we were able to play with this of like go back into things that we're saying are more like just relativistic, right? Little sensations here and that. And you could take that ultimate label and put it onto those sensations, right? Where previously that label was reserved for something else. Now, like, so if you find like you get these little hints of the sense of, I mean, in this meditation, we were just doing the sense of relative and ultimate, but I kind of want to speak to um, a broader way to play with your mind. You tune into the element of the thing you're kind of interested in and see if you can take that as like a label and then find it in other phenomena, other places, and kind of pick it up, like see the emptiness of the labels, drop the labels, and place them in different places. Yeah. Um, so yeah, so then you mentioned the plot twist of like, finding the sense of the ultimate um, in the relative. But then the next step after that was to find the sense of the relative in the ultimate, which I think can be a harder step to do because people normally have this sense of like, to go back to like a container. If you've got like, the bubbles sort of like coming and going in this like held in this sort of greater context or container of uh the liquid or the space or the glass or whatever. And so you've got like the relative emerges from the ultimate, and so um the kind of relative is nested in the ultimate. There is a way you can reverse that. And so you get this understanding of, oh, the thing I was previously calling that I was tuning into, that sense of the ultimate, is an emergent relative happening, goings on as well. Because normally this is harder to see because people want to put stock in the sense of the ultimate as like earlier mind moments preceding events that you start becoming aware of in your meditation journey. So you start tuning into like, the kind of the gap in between or before thoughts, or the sense of an observer before um, like a personal self emerging. There's this tricky thing to start noticing, instead of having this framing of like that the thing you're calling the ultimate is a preceding, like more foundational mm, thingamajig. You can kind of level the hierarchy and find that, oh no, my sense of tuning into that also comes and goes. Like I wasn't always aware of that. Um, yeah. I mean, it's a journey. It's like a thing. And then here's a really unifying perspective where maybe like a definition of the ultimate means um, it must be found everywhere and is applicable to everything. And so, do you kind of get me? That might be one way you conceive of like what's ultimate. So if you take this following statement, everything is relative. Now you've combined the ultimate and the relative. Everything is relative. Everything is conditional. As a way, if you can get into a way of relating with that, seems to make sense. And then you find what is that thing that I'm in that statement. Everything is relative, and then you still might have little um, sort of snippets of something that you go, oh, but that statement doesn't apply to these things. And then you inquire into those things, whatever the thing back there or down there or in or wherever you place it around, and find, oh no, it still applies, still conditional, right? And so then you've merged the two, and you can find like, oh, they are kind of um, they entail each other, and you can kind of swap them out for one another in a way to then get to the point you just drop those concepts. And can you um, drop those concepts and then still retain what you care about, which is to be engaged in the world and still perceive clearly and wakefully and have intellectual conversations and talk about what's like meaningful for you. Um, I also see this as a way to reconcile the meaning crisis, where we can't find ultimate meaning. Oh no, it's all relative. So then you have the potential to fall into nihilism. But then you got to go meta on nihilism. Even nihilism is not like an ultimate substantial way of describing things either. And then you find meaning in everything. You can just read the signals clearly by being able to clearly perceive the sights and sounds and sensations. They're always beaming meaning and information, saying stuff. Yeah. Sorry, that was my little rant. So it's true. I think there is a um like too early preemptive dropping before one has been able to reconcile and integrate the interactions between these, like gross concepts. So it is a journey that I do think you just kind of have to go through, don't rush it, don't skip to the end. It takes the time that it takes, and also there'll be looping. And this is the point, is that there isn't actually like an end goal here to get to the point where you stop using these concepts. It's like now that you've um just seen that they are quite kind of gross concepts and will have their place, but you also see their limits, we will keep cycling, like between um, engaging, proposing the concepts, and deconstructing and denying them, and unifying them and moving past them and dropping them and then coming back to them. And you will have that, but can you not get lost at any one point in that cycle, or like try to collapse any one point in that cycle as like this is the ultimate stance to take that like is appropriate and holds up over all time, or is the truer stance? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this could be like a funny way in which, I mean, that it's the curse of sort of the philosopher mindset to go on this strange loop of a journey, and then maybe where you come back to is just a very much more normie position because you don't you don't actually get an answer. Um, but then it makes a difference having gone on the journey. Uh, yeah, yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing. I asked whether it was like more um externally sort of socially imposed, because otherwise, if this doesn't connect with any of you, um, then that's okay as well. There's no need to like start reifying these terms and think, oh, is this an important part of my practice? Like if you're free from this kind of rut already, because you never like contracted and tangled in that way, then yeah, good for you. Yes, I mean the inspiration and kind of the broader um sort of meta system and toolkit here. I'll write this out in the chat. Inspired by Nagarjuna, is to recognize that like all ontological statements about what is or how things exist fall into four categories, basically. Either you're saying there is the thing, just put as X, right? X is the case. And so, yeah, in this meditation, we were talking about the sense of the relative and the ultimate. But like you're saying, you can take this same process and start applying it to other kind of ontological suppositions, that whatever you're working with. So the first statement, we suggest there is the thing X. The next statement, you suggest you start deconstructing it, not X. So then you could fall into a type of practice where you're doing the anti, the denial, not me, not self, not me, not mine, right? To kind of um, apply like an annihilating counterforce, sort of counter signal to cancel one out, or to learn how to take attention off of, stop reifying something. And then the next um, kind of proposition is then maybe you come to a place where you're like, oh, it's X and not X. Oh, actually, both exist. It's not just one or the other. Maybe there is a self, and there also isn't a self, right? If you like make sense of that. Um, and then an even subtler condition, which apparently you can't really write this in formal language, is neither. I'll have to write it out in English words. Neither X nor not X, right? And then you can go like doubly denial, that like, oh, even the before statements, the both and statements, like it's not even that. It's like what this is not even um made sense of or defined as there is a self or there isn't a self, or even the combination of the two. But even that is a very subtle attempt to formalize, to, ultimately frame whatever your ontological statement is. And it seems that reality just slips past all framings. It slips out of all framings. So even if you get to this neither nor kind of way of understanding, can you even take attention off of that and not try to make that some kind of immutable, um, truthful statement as well? And also don't be uh, like skittish about appealing to any one of these statements as well. Of course, like at times we have to say, yeah, there's a pen, and then there isn't a pen. I have a pen in this hand, and I don't have a pen in this hand. And it's cool. Yeah, yeah. So you can see how it's like really applicable. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there were a number of like stepping stones where I kept thinking I was tuning into something that seemed ultimate. And then the goalpost kept moving. That's the thing. Like in time, there was always, refinement of view and integration of sort of seeing the thing that I couldn't perceive clearly. And so it was like pedestalized in a way, and then seeing it more clearly and seeing its limits, seeing its like untenability, and yeah, going through a process like, oh, even that's conditional, even that comes and goes. Um, even that, um, its existence and function necessitates other things because it's interrelated, you know, and dependent upon other things. So yeah, I guess what I really want to communicate is the mind moving, the mind moving through perspectives, right? The Depending on how you're framing it, but often I think when people tune into sense of the ultimate, they're trying to do like a freeze frame thing in their experience. They're trying to like block and capture something, or it is a kind of like stilting move in the mind. And what I've found in my experience is like, oh, this thing, it just continues to flow, and there's less like blocking and distinguishing happening, right? And there's a relativizing of these perspectives. And yeah, yeah. Do you kind of get me? Yeah, I also do want to encourage like not rushing through the process, because then it can become just a very like denial process as well, like annihilating, you know, and it's like, can you get the best of both worlds as well, the ability to um be less sticky, less attached, and engaged. Yeah. Um, okay, and you're saying, what about the relative? How did you perceive it? So, like, yeah, what kind of attributes would we give to the relative of things that are? Well, one of them is that they're they're dependent upon like very specific conditions in order to arise. So, for example, different cultures will have their like specific, um, let's say, traditions and morals and mores, And in a time when, can I think of an example? In a time before globalism and mass travel and all these things and understanding of different, different traditions and access to all these different perspectives, someone who stays in their home village their whole life, they just have this sense of, um, objectively, the king is ordained by God and has like the closest connection to God or something like this. Um, Whereas, then you might step out of that system and see like, oh, that's kind of actually just a political structuring that we've organized to try to control the population, but it could be done another way where you hadn't even considered that, oh, things could be different. So I guess relative might be understanding like, um, oh, things could be different. I guess sort of slipping that in. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting one to kind of hang the sense of the ultimate on because quite arguably one way people would define the ultimate is it is persisting or there or beyond uh or not, prison to changes of time. And so it's there for eternity. And then you've picked a sense of a now. Sorry, picked, but you have this sort of sense of the now, which would be, by that kind of a definition or understanding of the ultimate, it'd be like, oh, well, of course that's the ultimate because this now is somehow like it's always, maybe you want to go, it's always now. Whereas um, other things that we might have previously thought of as the ultimate, you think, oh, that um, God can be an interesting example, depending on how you're understanding God, is like, oh, an eternal being. And then you might come to another perspective of that kind of a being saying like, he's actually not eternal. I mean, he persists and exists for an incredibly long amount of time. But even, in the Buddhist conception, they'd be like, no, there are these like, ginormous, long lasting beings, but even they actually die. Even they are subject to causes and conditions and come and go. It's just that, their conditioning is that supports their existence is um, much, 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 much less fragile compared to any of the timescales and things that we like are more familiar, dry size goods that we interact with. Um, but yeah, then you might come to like, oh, even that, even God, like comes and goes. But if you've got a sense of the now, I guess the work to be done to be understand that this this sense of the now, and I think that's it. I'm adding the word sense of, which I think is a good uh, thing to include, to recognize whatever we're referencing, it's because there's a sense of it. There's nothing to reference. Even if you have like, oh, a very subtle theoretical idea, it's still something informing your experience. So it's still a sense of that thing. And then we propose or presume, yeah, I've got the sense of the thing, but the sense of the thing is implying there is a thing in itself beyond just the sense of the thing, which is very, very, very questionable. But your sense of the thing does come and go because you're not always sensing it. But you might have a thing where you're like, well, every time I go to look, I sense it immediately and I find it. It's always there. But, you can just have the blind spots and the amnesia of not remembering when you're not sensing it. But, that's for you to go on that journey. Okay, I've got one for you because this calls a lot of these things into question. Every time I check, there's a green frog in my mind I can find. Hmm? No, I see it. I just got the flash of it. I went to check and boom, there it was. Well, like, what's the difference, right? Between flashing the image of a green frog that every time you look for, you check it's there, and your sense of the now. Um, yeah, that can be part of the trappings of introducing the notion of cessation, and then, of course, there with anything, there's this potential to reify it. So this is where a great point you bring up, and this is where I like to make this distinction between nibbana and nirvana. You can have a cessation and realize nibbana, but there's always the potential, and it's supposed to be like totally no fabrication, right? Like, if eighth jhana, either perception or non-perception, is the flimsiest, whimsical, most, you know, defabricated state there is, it's not even that nibbana. And so you have a cessation. There's this jump cut in experience. Nothing was experienced, but you're left with this after impression that kind of updates a prior of, oh my God, like it all went away. Like it really all went away. But now you mistake the kind of lingering after impression. You start building a concept and an idea, right? And so, like, we always want to name stuff and call stuff and point towards stuff. And so then there's the idea of nibbana. And so I put it where distinguish nibbana versus nirvana is nibbana, the compartmentalized version of the direct realization of reality with neither form nor mere subtle reference to formlessness, and is only apprehended via complete cessation, with near misses being insufficient, and often even cessation itself being insufficient. And then nirvana is the integrated version of nibbana with all that it was initially considered not to be. So, again, even that, a journey of noticing the potential of reification, distinguishing, and integration. Yeah. Well, just on that point, I've always thought that in English, I don't know if there's a language that doesn't have this problem. All I know is in English, like I wish we had two words to differentiate between an active nothing and like a nothing nothing. So, the difference between seventh jhana nothingness versus cessation. Like, so we don't have these obvious words, clear shorthand words. So, always have to spell out the difference every time. That you can, I can write nothing on the page. Oh, it's backwards, but I can write that and show that to you. Be like, nothing. And you're like, whoa, nothing. But it's still a thing saying nothing. Right. That's what seventh jhana is like. Versus cessation is like not not that, no messaging, you know. Like not all cessations are equal, but if you really get the insight of nibbana, say it, dare I say, should leave a kind of deep impression of you. Like that was different than just sleep. Like yes, there's this kind of refresh quality. I mean, a lot of people, they don't feel refreshed after they go to sleep and wake up. But even if you did, like, it's funny by comparison, you find that, without having experienced both to compare each other, cessation versus deep sleep, the more naive position is you think, oh, when you go to sleep, you're unconscious, like totally lights out. But actually, by comparison to even cessation, you're like, oh, deep sleep is still, there's still form even in deep sleep. It's like extremely minimal, or like you're just not aware. Whereas the contrast of a cessation, because it's so quick, like really shows you. the difference of form, no form. Yes, or, I think, like, not all cessations are last as long or as deeply impactful because the entrance and the exits can be different, sort of the taper off and taper back in can have, like, different sort of, attack and decay functions. Um, a lot of time what can happen, is people get caught up more on the before and the after. So they have a cessation and then there's this, like, afterglow, nice feeling, and they're like yeah, you get, like attention gets more hung up on the before and the after and sort of misses that moment in a way. Like, it kinda happened, but or it did happen, but you just more and again, attention starts getting caught and latching onto the form side of these things. Uh, yes. Yeah, so it's something to, I recommend it's like have a cessation and you try to retroactively peer back in time to that split second jump cut and not, um, just delight or bask in the refresh. Yeah. Uh, yes. But also maybe, cessations have their limits of interest as well. Yeah, pacing of these things and discussions and, yeah. I mean, this is material I've, like, just ruminated a lot on and yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Alright, guys. I wish you good evening, good rest of the day, and, yeah, take care. Be well.